And here we are just 7 years later. We're one of the largest grassroots movements in the country, and we are winning. We are beating the gun lobby.
You know what, Shannon? I love your story because you were just a mom and living your life, and then a tragedy happened, the Sandy Hook tragedy, and you decided to do something because it affected you. And I just love that you decided to figure it out.
You know, I had been a corporate communications professional for several years, but I knew nothing about gun violence, gun laws. I knew nothing about organizing. I just knew our nation was broken when children weren't safe in their own schools.
Right.
And Mothers Against Drunk Driving was so influential in my life in the 80s. And I wanted to join something like that, this badass army of women across the country that could make a difference. And that's what the Facebook page I started turned into.
What was the hardest and most challenging part of putting your organization together that's fighting against gun violence?
Well, in the early days, you know, it was like drinking from a fire hose, learning about gun violence in this country, learning about organizing, bringing together all these perfect strangers from across the country who had different skill sets that could help me get this organization off the ground.
Right.
And here we are just 7 years later. We're one of the largest grassroots movements in the country, and we are winning. We are beating the gun lobby.
Which is really hard to do. I mean, I think for so many of us who are watching how everything's play out right now, you don't back down from the NRA. You don't back down from people harassing you, and they're bullying you, and they're so, I don't know, just aggressive. And just to see your strength through that. Were you first surprised at how much hate you received? I
was shocked. You know, I just started this Facebook page never thinking that my public information would be used against me. And suddenly, this underbelly of America that I didn't know existed was attacking me online, on my phone, driving by my home, sending me letters.
Right.
Was I going to back down, or was I going to double down?
Right.
And that's what I ended up doing, because the gun lobby, the NRA, has made gun extremists afraid their guns will be taken away.
Right.
But 80 million moms in this country, regardless of political party, are afraid their children will be taken away. And I really believe that's what will win this at the end of the day.
You think the gun lobby's strong? You don't know moms.
The name of your foundation is interesting because I feel like you're trying to explain the obvious, that it's just sense. It's like having common sense when it comes to guns, right? Moms demand action for gun sense in America. Do people still question if their gun rights are going to be completely taken away?
You know, gun sense is common sense. It's this idea that we can do more to protect our families and our communities from gun violence. And we know when we look at polling that over 90% of Americans support stronger gun laws, like a background check on every gun sale, 90% of gun owners, even 74% of NRA members. So this is not a polarizing issue among the general public. This is about some lawmakers who are still beholden to the gun lobby and haven't acted. And that's what we work on every single day, is to have those conversations across the aisle to say, we support this. These laws are life-saving, and it's your job to act to protect us.
How's that been going? Do you feel like there's movement? What needs to happen? What kind of support do you need to make those changes?
We have made such amazing progress in just 7 years. We are stronger than we've ever been as an organization. The NRA is weaker than they've ever been. And so we have been able to pass, for example, background checks now in 21 states, laws that disarm domestic abusers in 28 states, something called the red flag law that disarms people who are a danger to themselves or others temporarily in 18 states. So the progress that we're making is huge, but I don't think everyone knows about it because they're waiting for this cathartic moment in Congress. What I have learned over the last 7 years is that Congress is where this work ends. It's not where it begins. We have to do what I call the unglamorous heavy lifting of grassroots activism every single day. And eventually we will get there. It's going to take us several election cycles, but it will happen.
And did you expect to be in this position?
No, I never imagined that I'd be an activist. I assumed after my kids were grown that I'd go back to work.
And you have 5 kids, correct?
I have 5 kids, yes. And when the Sandy Hook school shooting happened, they were elementary, middle, high school, and college. And our last one just went to college, so we're empty nesters now, which gives me even more time to take on the NRA. But my goal was to start an organization where women did everything soup to nuts. So often when you're in this space, you see male-run think tanks, and maybe some state organizations that men run. And yes, women often in activism are doing what's considered menial labor, whether it's making snacks or setting up chairs or getting a menu. But in our organization, they also set the strategy, they take the spotlight, they get to be all of it. And I'm so grateful for the men and the non-moms who join us. We call ourselves mothers and others, because they're letting women lead. And women are only about 17% of the 500,000 elected positions in this country. We make up less than 1% of Fortune 1000 CEOs. Sheesh. As the saying goes, if you don't have a seat at the table, you're probably on the menu. And so I wanted to give women that seat at the table.
How would you encourage someone to get involved?
I actually think oftentimes women are scared to get involved. We're perfectionists. We're scared of making a mistake. We're scared of making fools of ourselves. And so sometimes we wait to get involved until all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. I wrote a book called Fight Like a Mother, and in that book I talk about how with Moms to Man Action we really built the plane as we flew it. Not many of us knew exactly what we were doing or where we were headed, but we knew that the time was right for this. And if we had waited, the moment would have passed.
Right.
And so the advice I'd give, particularly to women, is you don't have to know everything to jump in and get started. You just have to be passionate about it. And I would say the same thing about running for office. If you're a mom or a woman or an activist, and you're smart, then you are more than qualified to be a lawmaker. I spend a lot of time in state houses. They're not rocket scientists.
Right.
And so I also, my call to action for women in this country is to run for something. Right. I don't care if it's coroner or sheriff or state house, but think about running for office. I really think there's a moral imperative for us to do that.
When you first started your organization, were you surprised at the amount of support that came from other moms and others, just regular day-to-day people?
Oh, I thought I was starting a Facebook page to have a conversation
Right.
about the need to have an organization.
Right.
I didn't necessarily realize I was starting an organization. Yeah. And I was getting all these, again, my information was public, so I was getting all these emails and calls from type A women across the country who said, I want to do this where I live. And none of us really knew what this was, but we knew we had to organize and have rallies and get out there and get off the sidelines, right? That's the biggest part of this, is to stop being silent. And, I was a white suburban mom who was concerned my kids weren't safe in their schools, not realizing that over 100 Americans are shot and killed every day, particularly in city centers and in rural communities, whether it's gun homicide or gun suicide. And we have to address all of it.
For someone who wants to learn more about gun violence and, how to stop it, is it fair to say just go to your website and it has everything, like from laws to policies, or what needs to happen next? Like, can it get everything?
Yeah, there are three things I would say. So first of all, go to momstomanaction.org. You'll get tons of information there and all the research and data that we're talking about.
Perfect.
The second is to join us, and it's so easy to do. You just text the word READY to 64433. And someone will reach out to you and get you involved in your community. But the last thing is to be educated about where candidates and lawmakers stand on this issue. And we have a website called gunsensevoter.org, and you can go there and see where do the candidates that you're going to be voting on stand on this issue. It's so important going into the election year.
For sure. So do you and the moms and others talk about this and talk about, okay, we're going to be watching every candidate? Like, how serious do you guys take this?
Well, electoral politics is a big part of what we do. In the 2018 midterm elections, we actually outspent and outmaneuvered the NRA for the first time ever.
Congratulations!
Yes,
and they probably thought it would never happen.
I really do think women and moms organizing against them was the NRA's worst nightmare. But one of our spokeswomen is now a congresswoman from Georgia. We were able to flip 7 state legislatures to have gun sense majorities.
Wow.
And we elected 1,000 gun sense candidates across the country. So I'm really thrilled about 2020 and what that holds. I really think it will be a pivotal year for our movement.
What would be the greatest dream for you? What do you ultimately want to see happen for our country and for the world?
Passing all these good laws at a federal level, keeping our foot on the NRA's neck so they are no longer powerful.
Right.
And then maybe I could go back and learn how to garden.
Yeah.
in my
It's
free
great.
time.
It's going to happen
Yes.
one of these days.
Yeah.
Shannon, thank you so much for being here
Thank you
today.
for having
and
me.
thank you for all the work that you do. It's exhausting and it's thankless, and I just want you to know that we appreciate you very much.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Love that amazing interview. And I want to hear from you. Like, comment, and subscribe to the Stoop channel so that you never miss out on the latest celebrity interviews.